Plotting and Scheming. I'm here with Jonny Garza and the author of 1,500 Miles from the Sun. And I'll let Jonny tell you a little bit more about himself.
Yeah, hi, thanks for having me. I love the name of this channel, the Plotting and Scheming. Oh my God, that's so clever. Yeah, I'm Jonny Garza, and my debut YA novel, 1,500 Miles from the Sun, comes out, I guess it already is out at this point. That's so cool too. But yeah, it is about Corpus Christi, Texas high school senior Julian, aka Jules Luna, who is just trying to graduate high school, get into UCLA, and finally be able to move away from Texas and like all of the people and environments that have kept him closeted his entire life until he accidentally comes out as gay on Twitter after getting tremendously drunk at a party. And in the days and weeks and months that follow, Jules figures out all of the love and acceptance that can come from living your most authentic self, while also figuring out all of the fear and rejection that can also be very much a part of living our most authentic self.
I absolutely love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I really thank you for sending me an arc of your book, and I've been reading it, and it's just been amazing. And the playlist as well. I've just been like listening while I've been reading, and it's just like ideal experience. It's been pretty awesome. So yeah, like I honestly, I'm just like the way that I feel like your voice is just so natural feeling, and that's what I appreciate it about like your book the most. Just the fact that like it just, I remember hanging out with my friends in high school, and it just felt like very realistic of just like you're just chilling, you go out for lunch or you go out after school and just kind of like, we didn't go to the beach. I live by like Lake Ontario, so we would like skip school sometimes, or we would like after school go to Lake Ontario, me and my friends. So that was what we would do. So yeah, it felt like really realistic to like my own experience, and just like the friend group, like, oh my God, I really like like supportive they were of Jules. Like, I was like crying. I was just like, this is
Oh, that makes me so happy. Thank you. The voice took a minute. That was not an immediate thing. That took some work. But yeah, so I'm really happy whenever I hear compliments like that.
Okay, awesome. So I have some questions for you, but we might like skip around, and I might like ask you follow-up stuff. So first question, what first got you interested in writing, and what were your influences as like a Latin writer that made you feel seen?
Yeah, I think reading stories that allowed me to see that space could be made for people who looked like me, and thinking about those specific identities, like there wasn't a lot and still really isn't a lot there. And I'm honestly not the person who can say like, oh, I started writing like at 4. Like that definitely was not me. It was definitely kind of like an in the moment decision, and I am just the person who gets like easily obsessive over things. So I got into this mindset of like, I can do this, and that just sort of like from there went off like at 100 miles per hour like a few years ago.
That's incredible. I love that. Like, okay, so you said you weren't like super into it since you were like a small child or anything, but like growing up, were there any authors that you're like, oh, I really love this, or was it like your interest kind of was sparked later in life?
Growing up, like I definitely loved like the idea of like storytelling. Like I remember when I was a kid, like I loved reading like Hank the Cowdog and like the Magic Tree House like chapter books. Like those are like my thing. When I got a little older, I was like super into Lord of the Rings, and like just like in my mind, I was imagining these stories, but I never really made it onto paper. I think that's just kind of like where I wasn't like very good at it. I was just like, I'm not like all these stories having in my mind, but I just couldn't figure out a way to like actually write it down. And then as I got like older, I think like Benjamin Allaire Science is definitely an early influence. I had read one of his adult novels, Carry Me Like Water, and just fell in love with his prose and the way he writes. And after that, I just ran to the bookstore and picked up his short story collection, Everything Begins and Ends at the Kentucky Club. And then, of course, Aristotle and Dante. And like, I don't know if there's anyone, in my opinion, who like has a way with words like he does. And that coming with characters who look like me and who live in Texas really made it feel super special. And of course, like Becky Albertalli is a huge influence. Like if it wasn't for Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda, my book wouldn't exist.
I love that. Are you a fan of Adam Severa?
Oh yeah, very much so. And especially like currently right now, like speculative contemporary fiction is like what I just love so much. Like those, it's like just a normal world, but there's like one thing about it that just makes it completely different. Like they both die at the end and like more happy than not. Like it's a regular society, but there's like just this little bitty thing that changes everything. And even like Alex Villasante is the grief keeper. Like it kind of is the same way in which like it's a contemporary world, but there's one little difference that just affects the main character in this hugely dramatic way. Like very like Black Mirror-y sort of situations. Like I love that in fiction.
Yeah, kind of like magical realism, fabulism type of deal. Like I love that stuff. That's my
Yeah.
favorite. Are you thinking about doing something like that in the future? Or?
I would love to. I crave an idea popping into my head that would work like that, but like it's just I think I'm waiting for an idea. Like I wish I had that sort of creativity to where like, oh, like yeah, I'll just come up with Deathcast and like look how easy that was. Um, that would be a goal. That's a goal. One day I'll just have to like run away and think of a speculative contemporary idea.
Yeah, I want to see that from you. To be perfectly honest, like I love that. Like I'm really like excited for your mariachi like thing that you have going
Yeah.
on right now. Like honestly, like the stuff that you've been like you've posted like just a little like some snippets of like your next stuff, and I'm just like I am ready for it. Just
I am
really.
too.
Okay, so next question. When did you get super serious about like traditional publishing? When did you start learning about querying and going after that?
Probably when I found out that DV Pit existed, so like around April 2019. And then even before then, like I'd had someone beta read my book for the very first time. And I remember her reading the first few chapters and telling me that it read like an already published book, which like was probably hyperbolizing, like I'm sure it was. But like I think just that initial spark of like getting validation for something that I didn't really have a tremendous amount of confidence in, and then realizing I could go somewhere with this story maybe. And like I didn't know where that would be or how to do it or what that would involve, but it got me serious about like at least trying to get my book as good as it could. And then just being a part of the writing community, I think really helps like see these sort of opportunities like Twitter pitch events and stuff. And so when I found that out, I was like, okay, here's a hard deadline of like when I need to have my book like as good as it can be, and figure out like what a query letter even is and see how it goes.
That's awesome. So when you first started that process, like what was it like for you? Like I feel like a lot of authors like look back on like their first query and this like I want to die. Like I don't want to think about the first queries I ever sent in my life ever again. They were just not good. So like how was that for you in terms of like did you feel like okay, like how like did you do a lot of querying or not that much?
Um, I I I feel like if I remember correctly, I feel like I queried around like 30 something agents. Um, and it happened pretty quickly. Like right after DV Pit, I like had like a couple that I really wanted and I sent it to them like immediately. One of them got back to me like that night. And so it just started pretty quickly. Um, I do know though, like before DV Pit, there like, and even before I was getting query help too, I had some people like read over my query and help me with that. Before that, I did send it to one agent and like super unprepared to be doing this. I like do not even perceive sending out this query to them. Hopefully they don't remember even getting it. Like I never got any response back. So like we've all probably just like let it pass. But besides that, like I was able to like get a lot of help with my query, which I'm very lucky about, from a few different people to really sharpen it. And so like with my query, I did feel pretty confident about it going in. It was more, I think, just like whenever they started asking for the full manuscript, and it was like, oh my gosh, like I don't know what happens now. Like they're reading my full book, and like these people like have thoughts, and I don't know what to do now.
That's really interesting to know. And like honestly, I love you sharing that because of the fact that like you really helped me a lot in terms of like looking at my query when I first started querying at the very beginning. And I I just want to talk a little bit about that because I thought it was funny because of the fact that like your premise is like someone on Twitter, like just drunk coming out on Twitter, like just but the DMs, like you were talking about like DMs with like Aiden Thomas last week, and I was just like, I remember just DMing you, and I'm just like, can you look at my query? Or like, it's like looking back on that now, I'm just like, was that cringy? I don't even know that, but I was like, I'm just shooting my shot. I don't care.
Yeah, and I remember, I think it was like connected to a tweet I had tweeted at some point about like helping writers, and so I was like, wait, yeah, like please, like by all means, I have nothing else right now, like let's go for it. And I love helping query letters, like it's my favorite, and so I was completely here for just diving into the DMs in that moment.
Honestly, that's so sweet of you because like looking back on it now, because like I'm not versed in Twitter. Like I have had Twitter since I was a teenager, but I didn't ever use it until I started querying and doing like PitMad last year. So I just had it like sitting there, and I'm just like, it's going to be my professional thing of just like going on Twitter. And then it kind of turned into me being obsessed with all of the drama on YA Twitter, which is the most unhealthy thing in the entire world.
So much of it.
But yeah, you were just so sweet, and like you gave me such great advice, and like the pitches that you helped me come up with, and like my query still that's what I was using, and it was very successful. So yeah, you really helped me. It was fantastic.
Well, I'm glad that it helped. Like, I mean, that makes the DM worth it. Like, it helped. So I'm super happy about that.
Awesome. Okay. So, okay, I'm going to move on to the next question. So can you tell me a little bit about your writing history? Like, how many books did you write before you got published? And then this is a question that has kind of just developed out of me, like talking to people. Were you ever into fan fiction?
The fan fiction, no, I was not, sadly. I don't think I really even like was super aware of it existing growing up. I don't know. I don't know why, but I feel like my friends, I had the friends in high school who would have been in the fanfic, so I don't know why I wasn't. But somehow I missed the fact that fanfic exists. I super appreciate it, and like I'm here for like fanfic writers. I love it as a tool to like learn how to write and stuff like that. I feel like if I would have written fan fiction, I would have been a lot better, especially at YA writing, just off the bat. But like
writing for a franchise, fanfic really helps a lot.
yeah, like just getting into characters' heads and things like that, like that's such a cool tool. But I didn't do that. And 1500 Miles from the Sun is actually the very first book I've ever written. It was my second idea, and I started drafting it pretty shortly after shelving my first idea. So, and that was written during NaNoWriMo 2018. So up until even getting an agent, and even for a little bit afterwards, that was like my one and only book, which is like, I know it's like truly a blessing to be able to say that. Like I know my own writing and querying journey looks very different from a lot of people's, and sometimes like it still feels weird like being like, yeah, this is my one book. Well, now it's not, but like back then, like this is my one book, and like how quickly everything's happened, and like sometimes I still feel like I'm just kind of surrounded by people who have been here for years and like brand new even still. Like it's really weird sometimes.
Okay, that's really interesting to know about. And like by the time this video is posted, I'm gonna probably have like announced what's happened by the way. So I just want to say like I can totally relate to that, where it's kind of just like if you feel like things are happening really fast, you're just like, why is it happening like fast when so many people have been in the trenches for years and they haven't seen any results. So yeah, I think it's just like a matter of like trusting your own voice and knowing that like, hey, your voice needs to be out there because it isn't there. So that's the main thing, you know what I mean? So I feel like there's a little bit of an opening for like more voices to be out there, and like I just really pay homage to the people who have come before me who have helped that exist. Like for me, I'm really grateful to like people like Danielle Clayton, like and like Brandy Colbert, and Nicola Yoon. Those are like the people that I comp all the time. So those are the people that I've been really grateful to, just because they put the story out there. Like interviewed a couple other Black authors, and like those were the first people that they ever saw themselves in books with those authors. So it's just like it's highly overdue for a lot of communities of color to see the representation that has been coming out recently. So yeah, I feel like for you as well, like with Adam Silvera, I don't know if you know, he has a TV series coming out that he's writing.
Yeah.
So crazy.
Yeah, like he's on it.
So it's just like people like that, and then I feel like stuff like your stuff is like it's going to be like kind of like skyrocketing because of like his stuff. You know what I mean? So I just think that's really cool. Okay, so my next. Sorry, go ahead.
Hard agree, like with everything you just said.
Okay, so for the next question, I want to ask you about your writing process and like your craft. Can ask you the hard questions, right? Okay, so are you a pantser, a plotter, somewhere in between? And then, yeah, like how do you approach revisions? Like, are you like someone, because like for me, like revisions have been this weird thing where like I'm just like, I really want to go in depth, but like then I would get so much anxiety that I'm just like, I can't. And then I would not do it until I kind of like was able to like settle down and be like, okay, I'm gonna make a very detailed plan about my revisions right now. But that's
yeah, for sure. My method for drafting novels has changed like every single time, but I feel like if I had to pick a favorite, it'd probably be pantsing. I pantsed 1500 Miles from the Sun, and even with my second book, Under and Something We're Here, like I did give my agent a very general idea and a pretty vague synopsis of what I envisioned the story being, but it was still basically pantsing. Like there was absolutely no plot involved in that synopsis, which they were very upfront about telling me when I sent it to them. But like I've also plotted before, and like that was also just undeniably successful for me when it came time to draft. So I don't know. I feel like my ideal way is probably somewhere in between the two of them. When it comes to revisions, I usually like get super excited about them. Like I love revising, and like usually I'll have just written down a bunch of notes during the first draft of like everything that I want to add or consider or change or get rid of, that like I don't want to stop myself from drafting and just go. I keep on going forward, but just like jot all these things down to get later. And so like I have like that sort of plan of like everything that needs to be taken into account whenever I start my revisions. And that's what I take care of first, in addition to like basically throwing any idea that I can think of just for the sake of word count, because I'm very much an underwriter. So like just being able to put things in, even kind of haphazardly, helps me just feel better about like seeing that number rise. And then the round after that's usually when I start thinking critically, like about plot and character art and voice and all that stuff that then makes a story into a book. And just like doing it over and over again until I feel like I can't make it any better. I feel like there's always like in the first round of revision, it's usually like really exciting because like I finished this draft, like it's an actual thing, and now I get to like tighten it up. But then I feel like I always get into this point where it's like, oh my God, this book sounds like crap. Like it sounds like crap. It's always going to be crap. It will never not be crap.
Yeah.
And it takes a minute. Like there's a couple of revision cycles where it's just like, I don't know how to turn this crap into not crap. And like at some point, it always happens where it's just like, wait, no, this book is actually really good. Like whether it's like finding like a main character's voice or like just really getting into their head or like figuring out side characters, like there's always something that sparks that it's like, okay, like now it's getting somewhere. And then like I think that's when like my second win comes in of like, okay, now we can put in the effort, like keep on doing it, we're almost there. And then after that, I'm very lucky to have a few beta readers who are like incredibly intelligent and insightful and also just really respectful of the stories I want to tell, who have been hugely helpful with making my book or any of my books really shine, which I think is important because like, especially as a new writer, or even like, I mean, I did not like have any kind of schooling in writing or anything like that. Like I always like to be aware of the limitations of my own knowledge and when to ask for help. And I think that's really what like helps me succeed in my own writing, is having a bunch of people who will like help me like figure out like when to use me versus my and lie versus lay and all those things that like I just don't even take into account because I've read this draft like 8 times in a row. So there's a bunch of things that I'm just missing now. And like when I think I there's like this one example I always think of, like when I was querying, I got a revise and resubmit from an agent who specifically wanted me to stop using passive voice so much. I had no idea what passive voice meant. And like, so knowing what she was referring to was not something that I could even identify, but like, I kind of just assumed I knew. And I did like a quick Google search that was not at all helpful. And like thinking back on it now, like I tried to fix it myself, and then I handed it to a CP who was interested in reading it. And I told her, I was like, oh yeah, like I was asked to fix the passive voice. And I think I did it. Like, I think I did a good job. And she was like, so I read the first chapter and you didn't do that at all. Which was like super embarrassing, like to just have her, but also like she was super nice, and she shared
Well, that's
with
good though.
me. Yeah, like at least someone caught it before the agent
Yeah.
did. She shared, I don't know if you know the Hemingway app, but I use that as a tool. And like one of the things it does is it will clock every single use of the passive voice that you have. Like, and I go like chapter by chapter, and it'll like highlight all those things, like
The Hemingway.
passive voice. Yeah, the Hemingway app, like it does passive voice, adverbs, all these, like if like the constructions of sentences are like a little bit too long and stuff like that, like it catches all of that. And so that I was like, this is fantastic and exactly what I needed. So yeah, even like in those embarrassing moments, like I've had people who've just been like, let me help you not make these mistakes.
That's amazing. And I love that. It's kind of like having CPs and betas is like incredibly important. And I feel like a lot of people might not know the importance of that. And they're just like, oh, I have a book, I'm going to start querying, and like might not know. Like, so besides that, it's just like mentor programs, I feel like are incredibly valuable, but it's also like there's very few spaces. So it makes it a lot more difficult, like for like Pitch Wars, AMM, RevPit, and all of that stuff. And it's great getting into that, but like most people are not going to get into this program. So you have to be your own mentor, which is something that I've talked about with a couple other people, because it's just kind of like you have to be ready to kind of like get yourself to that point, because it's like it's not necessarily going to be you're going to have a mentor, but like working with betas is really, really great. And I just wanted to ask you, how did you kind of like come across your betas and like start connecting with them?
Yeah, so the first one, it was a lot, like during that time there was what is it called? I think it's called like hashtag right LGBTQ, and I think it's still going on, but like they were having these weekends where it would be like Saturday would be like the hashtag was for finding beta readers. And so like I was doing that for a couple of weeks, for a few weeks actually. And like it was not fruitful. I was not getting anyone who wanted to read this like contemporary YA story at all. I got like one person, like, literally one person who was like, oh, I'll read it. And so I DM'd her and I was like, you want to read this? Like, here's what it's about. Like, I'll like if you want to, like, please, oh my God, like you're like the only person. So I had her read it and she was super helpful. And then I also made like Anne Friend during NaNoWriMo, and they actually also read it for me too. And they really helped like get it to where it should have been. So those are like the two that I had. I think those are the only two I had before I started querying originally, because those are just like the only ones who I could find. But after that, like I had someone who would help me query, like then moved on to like being a CP for me, and then like also doing a bunch of those little hashtag games for writers on Twitter. Like there was one for like I think it was like a main character one like in March or something, and the person who hosted that became one of my CPs. And so I feel like just interacting like on Twitter in the writing community in those ways, like I know like there's things like hashtags more words, and like I'm assuming that they still have those little like hashtag month games where like you get to talk about your manuscript like in certain aspects. I'm not really sure if they do that anymore, but like I always found those really helpful in just meeting people and meeting specifically people who are like writing the things that like I want to write too, and like having that in common. And then like becoming friends with them, and that turning into like, hey, do you want to read my book, and that sort of situation.
That's awesome. I don't know of that many hashtags of it. One of the ones that I participated in is Writers in Quarantine.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
So that's the one that I know of mainly.
Yeah.
I'll link them in my bio as well because
I think
they're
I
just
think
very
that's the
sweet.
only one that I really see anymore. They like a couple of years ago, it used to be like a pretty big thing. Like there was literally one every month of just like a different theme.
Oh,
There's
cool.
like a mental health May one and like just like a bunch of different
Mental
ones.
health, mate. That sounds cool. I want
Yeah,
that
you
one
gotta
back.
yeah, like you gotta talk about like your characters like in the context of like mental health and stuff like that. Like it was super cool.
I might reach out to you because I want to know what happened to that.
Yeah. I actually know I think I know the people who are in charge of it, so I can see if they even have like their prompts and stuff saved somewhere.
That's really incredible. Like honestly, I feel like yeah, having CPs and betas is very essential, and reaching out to them, that's the thing. And like you said, Twitter is the big place to do that. And it's like if you're not a big Twitter person, it's kind of like making that leap and trying to talk to people. It can be difficult. So I definitely appreciate that. Like I'm not kidding. Like I never used Twitter before last fall at
Yeah.
all, which was kind of weird and just very strange. But like honestly, and then like I have some friends who like recently were just telling me like, oh, like yeah, I've been querying, but I never go on Twitter. I'm just like, you need to go on Twitter. You just have to, and because they're like trying to pitch, they were like participating in like pitch events. I'm just like, go on pitch events. You gotta like network with people. It's really really helpful. So in terms of like editing and stuff, like you were mentioning, like you weren't really thinking about like some of the structure stuff. Like for me, like sentence structure, I don't know what that is. I will just write all of my sentences will just start with I. Every single sentence in my will just start with I. I felt like it's really bad. So, but no, I've been trying to like work on that. And so like that's like one of my biggest things. And then like crutch words because like
Oh my
just
oh
actually
my gosh.
like it's I think I have those words over 300 times.
Like I now just refuse to even look at how many times I'm using words like just or like that's just I don't perceive those. It's
No, they don't
how
exist.
many times I use them is how many times I use them. Like I'm not gonna worry about that anymore.
I consider it a meme now next door
Like
because it's like teenagers do talk like this. So fuck off. That's kind of
exactly like I'm just talking how a person talks. You
yeah.
know, like if you want to criticize the likes and the just, go and do adult books. I don't know what to tell you. Like
I'm never doing a search for my likes. Like amount
yeah,
of
no.
times I said like on that unnecessarily. No, that's not
For
something.
my own stability, like I can't do that to myself.
It's too much. So like I've really been trying to like work on stuff like that, but like I did want to talk a little bit about like yeah, the atmosphere of your book. Like you have like this fantastic just like the description of like Corpus Christi and then like the food. It made me so hungry that like I ordered Mexican like a lot while I was reading. Like too much. It was a lot. So like it was just like I want to know how you got into like that description type of thing, and like also like just the like Latin culture I felt was like very well expressed, and I want to hear more about that.
I love that. I feel like food was definitely like the foundational part of writing culture. I definitely had a lot of imposter syndrome about drafting this and like considering this story and wondering if I was even Mexican enough to be telling this story. And because like I grew up in a pretty like white assimilated town. So but the one thing I really did have was food, and like that was always something that made me feel connected to my culture. And so I used that as sort of like my way in and my way of getting comfortable with writing culture. And also like I love to cook in general too. So that was really fun. I got to like cook and use it as like research because I was like, okay, I need to know like how it's done. What am I smelling? Like, what am I hearing? What am I tasting? And so that was really fun to do that. Um, I wish that I had like an opportunity to go to Corpus while I was drafting, but like did not do that. So a lot of it was just like from memory of growing up in Corpus and like having a lot of instances where editors were even like, let's add more, like let's give me more Corpus, give me more of where I am and what I'm feeling and what I'm seeing and smelling and hearing. And so like just having these opportunities to just go even further in studying, which I love. I love writing about studying. Um, I feel like I'm a very sensory reader. Like if I can like just close my eyes and imagine or even just visualize what's happening, like that helps me intake the words in the story better. So I think I come across my own writing in that way to where like I need to be able to visualize what's happening and what my character is seeing. Um, and yeah, I loved writing Corpus Christi as a place I grew up and a place that I really loved growing up, like between two different cities. Um, and I also just really loved like allowing myself to write culture. I think it's like a super cool opportunity that especially we as like BIPOC writers get to do. Um, and like putting in Spanish and stuff like that, and like putting in all these different little references to like Mexican culture. I just really loved doing. That was probably my favorite part about the whole story.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite parts too about your story. The fact that you just put in a lot of just like language. Is like you're gonna have to do the work. I was watching your talk with Aiden Thomas, and like somebody kind of said they're just like if you're not willing to look up the like languages in there, it's like stay ignorant then. Like have fun with that.
Like I mean, like I feel like I probably mentioned it then too, but I always feel like I think of Darius the Great is not okay, and like how well Adib Khorram really just threw like put immersed us into like Persian and Iranian culture and just did it sort of unapologetically and without a lot of context or like definition following it. And I remember reading that book pretty shortly after I drafted 1500 Miles from the Sun, and like after that, I was like, the first thing I did was take away all the italics from my Spanish. I was like, yeah, that doesn't need to be there. And just like felt a lot more confident in using, especially language, as like a reference point for writing culture. Like, and like I'm not like I'm not fluent in Spanish, like whatsoever. And like I had to Google translate a bunch of things. Like I feel like I don't think I do anything that's like super like you have to put in a ton of work to figure it out. Like I think it's usually pretty simple and pretty like in context of what's happening. So yeah, like
I completely agree. And like actually I was watching a talk with Adam Silvera and the author of Hurricane Summer, Asha Bromfield.
mhm.
And so Asha Bromfield, her book is based in Jamaica, and there's a lot of Jamaican dialect in it to the point that she has like a glossary at the end. And Adam was kind of talking about the fact that it's like if people are willing to look at glossaries about sci-fi books and what all of the different meanings are behind it, you can do that for any different culture. You know what I mean? Like it's not that hard. So
No, yeah, for sure.
but yeah, I feel like I really appreciate the fact that you just felt empowered to like put that in there, because it's just like I feel like that's what the future of books looks like, where it's just like we're not going to just like mince this for you, we're not going to make it easier for you. You're a capable human being. You can kind of figure this out.
No, yeah, I agree. I completely agree. Like I am so excited for like these books from different cultures that like have different languages and different things that I've never experienced that like I might have to go look up. Like that's totally okay. Like there's nothing wrong with that. Like it's just not someone else being able to explore their culture in writing and like them getting to do it like shamelessly and as much as they want to. And like I am more here for that than my own like having to get on Google Translate or having to look up what something is real quick. Like that's a small price to pay for someone being able to write the story the way that they want to.
That's amazing. So next question I want to kind of ask you is about your editing and sub journey, because as a marginalized writer, like we're talking about, like it's might be more difficult to get people on board with the way that you write your story. So if you feel comfortable kind of sharing about like how that was for you, like after you got your agent and your subbing, like how were you able to get your story out there in the most authentic way possible?
Yeah, like I feel like it's probably just a lot of our experience that so many of us will get those full requests and then just sort of get like a very well-meaning email that's like it just didn't like suit me or didn't really fit like what I want, or like I just don't know how to market this book. Like a lot of those different things that could kind of be construed as like you just don't know how to like sell books that aren't white, essentially. And like I think it's just kind of like comes with the experience of queering as a marginalized creator. Um, but I'm repped right now by Claire Draper at the Bent Agency, and I actually found them through PitMad in August 2019. And like I done DV Pit, and while I was getting a lot of full requests, I was also getting a lot of no's. And so I remember like mentally thinking like, okay, I'm just gonna put my attention towards pitch wars now, actually. Like that's what I was planning on doing. That was like the choice that made the most sense to me in figuring out like why was I getting all of these no's? Like someone can help me fix this. But then I saw on their website that they also had a PitMad happening like a month and a half before the pitch wars was starting. So I was like, okay, well, screw it. Like, might as well just try and see what happens. And like, I legitimately wasn't expecting anything out of it. I remember just being so blasé about it compared to DV Pit because like there just really wasn't that excitement for me because I was already just geared towards something else. And I was already like, all these agents are just gonna tell me no for the same reason as everyone else. So like, whatever. But I ended up being really wrong about that, which was really cool. And I had eventually gotten offers from two different agents, and I feel like what made Claire kind of stand out between the two was that from the very beginning of our phone call, like I could tell this was going to be the person for me. Like not only as an agent who just was very excited about the potential of representing me, but wanted to be a champion for my work and the stories I wanted to tell. I feel like they really got the story that I was trying to tell with 1,500 Miles in the Sun. And like we talked about other ideas that they had and like just how excited they were to like not only represent, but to be a champion of stories that were very clear and very brown. And like that made me feel like really excited and like really comfortable being able to like share not only just my time, but like the stories that I wanted to tell with them, because that's just like a very special thing, especially when it's like someone who's not like coming from your same identities. Like you don't know if they're going to get every single thing that you're writing. There might be some things that they don't understand, and like being able to know that this agent is going to attempt those to understand and like work and do all those things necessary to like not make you feel so, I guess, just like vulnerable in that way, was something that I really loved about the potential of working with them. And I really love so far working with them. And yeah, I think yes. But like, and what I really enjoy about working with them is that like in revisions, we sort of just like work on big picture things first. We kind of like they'll give me like a list of suggestions and ideas, but they let me have creative freedom to revise those things, because like by the time I even get the manuscript back, I've already probably thought on it. I have ideas for it, and a lot of the times those will be the same things that they're seeing potential in. And so like I enjoy like not having this huge amount of oversight from the get-go, but just these like mentions of what I can do, and then just okay, you can go do it, like you're smart. And then after that, like if there's a second round, we'll do like the tiny little detail work. But that's usually how our process has been.
Okay, yeah, that's awesome. So just to expand off of that. So after you first started working with your agent, and then how many rounds of revision did you do before you went on sub? And then when you went on sub, what kind of revision did your agent want, or sorry, your editor want you to do?
Yeah, with Claire, it was just those two rounds before we went on submission. We did like the larger view round, and then like the more condensed, like looking carefully at it round. And then we went on, we did that between like September and December of 2019, and then we went on submission in January. Um, and we had gotten our first offer like at the end of January. And so
Amazing.
yeah, like that, again pretty quick. And then we were working on revisions with Skyscape by June. Yeah, June was it. And so with Skyscape, they wanted first to go into some developmental edits before we went into like any sort of specifics that my editor wanted, and then after that, like line edits. So they brought in a developmental editor separate from Skyscape, who helped me work on like different aspects of the story, especially in relation to like Jules and his dad and Jules and Matt, and like just bringing up these characters and making sure that like everything was sort of purposeful in that. Um, that was, we did 2 rounds of developmental edits in June. And then after that, I did like a pretty short round of revisions with my actual editor at the end of summer. And then I think we did 2 rounds of copy edits after that. And then like even after that, it was sort of just like sometimes I'll get like little bits of things like stuff that they had caught because they keep on looking at it, or they've also brought in like a Spanish copy editor too. And so like even then there were still little moments where I was like just correcting some small things that they had caught just in between those times too. But it was probably about what then like 5 actual rounds of revisions with my publisher.
Okay, that's really interesting to know. It's kind of like for me, like hearing that type of stuff, it's kind of just a process of just kind of like figuring out like, okay, yeah, because it's different for everyone. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
especially when you get agented, people's manuscripts can be in very different places when they get agented.
No, yeah, for sure.
And it really depends on like what the agent is kind of like. If they're really passionate about it, they might just offer, even though they're like, we're going to need to do a lot of work. Or if we don't need to do any work, or like even just like a little bit of work type of thing. But it's cool to hear that. And like it sounds from like what you've described, your manuscript was just really strong from the beginning, because you didn't seem like you did that much stuff. So
Yeah,
that's
no,
great.
yeah, I remember that was a big difference too. Claire was very much just like, TBH, if I had to, I would go on sub with it right now. Like, I was like, okay, but we can still work on it. Like, I know there's stuff that like I know there's stuff we can work on, but like they had that confidence going into it. And I remember on the other side of that, the other agent like was pretty open about like, no, like we need to cut like 30,000 words, we need to do this and that. And I'm like, okay, like that sounds like work. But yeah, like I think it's just definitely through the eyes of the agent. And like I know friends who have like done like 6, 7 rounds of revisions with their agent before going on sub. So it really just depends on like the agent style, and also like I guess what like the style is that you're looking for as a writer too.
Yeah. I honestly, I love having conversations like this. So I really appreciate you being like
Yeah, of course.
about like your experience, because I feel like this is helpful for a lot of people who are maybe in the same boat and like looking to see like what kind of happens once you get an agent, and then like how much revision is required after that. Because like initially when you're querying like we talked about before, it's like if you don't have a mentor, it's kind of like you need to go into it really deeply to figure out what you're doing. So there's this website that I really appreciate called Be Your Own Mentor. I don't know if you've heard of that.
No.
So yeah, it's I've seen like quite a few different YA authors who've like contributed to it, but it's kind of just talks about different craft points to work on if you don't happen to have a mentor and you have to be your own mentor. So that's kind of like what I used really like studiously to get my manuscript to where it is currently. Like I did happen to work with the author of Like Home, Louisa Onome.
Yeah.
So we both happen to be like Toronto Black writers writing about Toronto Black girls, and she really helped me get my stuff in shape. But like my imposter syndrome was so strong. I'm just like, she gave me a couple notes. I'm just like, why isn't she giving more notes? Like, I feel like if my book is shitty, and why did she not give me more notes? But then like I had like some weird experiences where I was like, the first couple queries I sent out got full requests. And I was like, what is so I was like, oh, maybe there wasn't anything for her to give me more notes. Because in my mind, I'm just like, this is crap. I don't know why anyone would read this. But yeah, the value of mentorship is incredible. And like official mentorship programs, amazing. But it's just like if you happen to have connections and you want to talk to people, CPs, betas, people who happen to be published. And like for me, I actually applied for some government grants. So
Oh,
I'm in Canada, so I applied for the Toronto Arts Council grant, Ontario one, Canada one, and that's how I was able to like officially like employ Louisa to help me as a mentor through that, and that's how I was. She was able to like give me some feedback on my manuscript before I started querying. So yeah, doing stuff like that. So like just I feel like it's really valuable because like people think of like, oh, like grants and stuff. How does that happen? It's like you don't have to have anything written for a grant. You can just be like, hey, I have this idea. Um, this is what it's going to kind of look like, and that's basically it. And you can,
yeah.
so, yeah, that. So when I ended up getting grants, and then it was just like, oh, now I have to write this, and like it's very stressful. But yeah, it was a big motivating factor for me. But yeah, it's just like a very, I feel like it's a very unique process of like where people kind of like are starting, and but I feel like anything that everyone can do is just kind of like reach out to people, even
Yeah.
if you don't have like big writer friends or anything. Just kind of like, hey, are you kind of like looking at this type of profession too? You're querying, let's
Mm.
connect on Twitter, that type of thing, because it can be a scary prospect, especially if you happen to have anxiety
Oh
or
yeah.
anything like that. So I don't know how I even did it because I do have pretty bad anxiety.
No,
And I
same.
was just like sending people like, hey, Johnny, look at this. And I wasn't even asking. I'm just like, here it is. Here's my pitch. And you're just like very kind about it. So I really appreciate that. Okay, but okay, we can move on. So in terms of like when you were just starting out, what advice would you give to first-time writers?
Um, for first time writers, I feel like, especially when thinking about myself back then, I would say like, and even more so if you're writing YA, like I would say stop taking it super seriously. Like I'm very much the type of person who if I do something, my intention is to be the best at it. And that can be super annoying for everyone, but like that's just kind of who I am. And so I wanted my book to just be full of prose like Benjamin Allaire signs, and I wanted lines that people would tattoo on their bodies, and I really wanted like a Casey McQuiston history moment just parsed all throughout my book. I wanted perfectly clever characters, and like I was trying to force that out of me so badly that instead I was just writing a story that was feeling very empty and like not at all anything that like I I wanted to be telling, and I think like I was just really sounding like a mom who was trying to write about her teenage son, and she was doing just a horrible job at it. Is
Hello,
what it
fellow
sounded like.
kids type of thing.
Yeah, like a robotic mom is like just like observing her 17-year-old son, and it was pretty bad. And so like I really had to focus on just letting Jules and his voice be what drove what this book needed to look like. And really once I relaxed my shoulders and I changed perspectives over how to write the book, it was super life-changing. So like I think like don't look at yourself too seriously or think too critically about it. Like think more about the character and like their own voice and their own story and how that needs to be told.
I love that. Yeah, just being like very true and authentic to like what you want to tell in your story. I feel like is really important, especially as like a marginalized writer. I feel like a lot of people feel like they want to mince their words and like maybe try and appeal to more people, but I feel like those stories that you haven't seen before is what might get you ahead.
Mhm.
And besides getting you ahead, it's just like it's going to resonate with more people who have been in those.
Get that, yes. Like, and I feel like the concept that is very true that like especially marginalized writers, like we have to write books that are like 3, 4, 5 times better than white writers to even get noticed. But it doesn't necessarily mean that like our writing has to be 3, 4, 5 times better. It means the story itself just has to capture the attention in that sort of way. And like what you said, like it's gonna resonate more, especially to the audience that we're writing for. Like if we just write it more authentically than trying to like prove to anyone that we belong here, because like that we do.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And okay, we're going to be ending off soon, but I did want to ask you a little bit about music because your music taste is so impeccable that it's just like astounding and strange because it's the same exact music taste as me. Like,
I love that.
yes, literally the Maria's like exact
Oh
same
my God. Oh
on
my
my
God.
playlist for my weep, like my
I'm,
work in progress. So I'm just like, what is?
I'm
And then
so
Troy,
I'm so thrilled to meet another Maria Stan. Oh my God.
only in dreams. I'm just like, who else knows this song? I'm obsessed with them. And
Obsessed.
yeah, honestly, like, and then I already knew that you love Troy as much as I love Troy. Have you ever seen him live?
I have actually, yeah. I think that was actually the last concert I ever attended before the pandemic started. I saw him in Austin. Oh my God, so terrific. Oh my God.
That's amazing. I actually saw him in concert the day that Donald Trump was elected, and it was the last good day of my life before he was unelected.
Oh my gosh.
It was a lot. He was just like, I'm sorry, guys. I know you're going through a lot. I'm going to go back to Australia. It was amazing. I loved it. But yeah, no, I've been a fan of Troy since before he even released music. Like I was like a YouTube stan of his before that. And like what I especially loved about him is like 2014 or so, like a lot of people were like just coming out on YouTube, and there was like this huge thing of just like more representation in terms of people coming out and like talking about their sexuality at that time that he came out. Did you kind of like follow that at all, or?
Not really. I don't think I really knew of him until like Blue Neighborhood came out. Um, I guess I wasn't super into like the YouTube like community or scene or that. But I have friends who have like been following him since way back then. So like I am familiar with like all of that and like just his own journey on YouTube and like how far he's come.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. Like kind of just like seeing like, yeah, I remember him seeing him as like a 15-year-old, and now he's like fully coming to himself and like is able to just kind of like inspire all of these queer youth. And like I feel like some of like even like your main character, like I feel like seeing Troy might have made a difference for him.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, I just absolutely love that. And like my work in progress right now, so like I'm writing like a YA about like a black ballerina, and her love interest is happens to be like uh an a North African guy who is Muslim and kind of like dealing with his family. So he's a musician, and in like the follow-up to this book, like he writes this song about like the main character in my first book, and it goes viral on YouTube, and then he becomes like a superstar, but it talks about him being bisexual and him dealing with his family. So I thought a lot of the stuff he talked about like toxic masculinity and like Jules's dad and his relationship really related to like what was going on with what I'm trying to work on right now. So I thought that was really interesting.
That sounds so good. I'm already excited for this.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay. One last thing before we end off. Can you talk to me about Euphoria?
Oh yeah, of course.
You watch the extra episodes with
Yeah, oh my God. Like
with
the Rue one, I feel specifically is probably one of the greatest hours of television in history.
Period. Period. Period.
Like I was watching with my friends who also we watched Euphoria together and we were just like silent after it and we were just like, what do you feel? And I was like, I feel a lot of things, but also like this was perfect. Like everything about this was brilliant.
No, like honestly, like so in my like why I talk a lot about like addiction issues, and it was really interesting to just see her have an hour-long conversation with her sponsor, and
Yeah.
it goes so deep. And then to have like after Rue's episode, Jules' episode, she was just in a therapy session, and like that's something I also explore in my novel. I'm just like, Sam Levinson, I just need to talk to him.
And yeah, like I loved that too. Like especially in YAs, there was not enough teenagers in therapy when they should be in therapy. So like seeing that on television, like let's normalize that. Like put these teens in therapy, please.
Okay. One final question. It's like, okay, so after seeing Jules's episode, I was like, oh, so Rue and Jules can be friends, but they can never be together. Like, this is not going to work out. Like, what are you guys doing? Her mother happens to have like addiction issues. And then it was just too much.
Yeah, that was a lot.
Yeah. But do you still ship them? I ship them as friends.
Like, I feel like who doesn't ship problematic queer people? Like, I mean, I'm already fully, I don't know if you watch Elite, but like I'm fully on like the gay couple and that one who are just so problematic and like should not in any way be together. But I'm like, yes, every day that you're together, my heart grows fuller. Like, it's the same. Like, it's fine. If straight people can have problematic relationships, so can queer people. That's
Very
just,
true.
and like I loved like them, and what like the best of them together was just so good. Like,
I know.
I just I cling on to that. Like, they both don't need to be around anyone romantically for a very long time, but just like what they were together was just so special. And I was like, God, like I want that. I want to see so much more of that.
It was just incredible. Like, I felt like their friendship is very unique, and like I want to see. Okay, so they're filming season 2 right now, and I'm hoping they just have a lot of like Rue and Jules friendship moments and a lot of healing moments, because they both need to like just go to their sponsor, their therapist, have some talks, and then kind of figure out whatever romantic stuff they have going on. And then also like Jules, like, don't ever think of Nate again, please, and thank
like,
you.
We just like erase all the men except for oh my god
that little cutie who was with Kat.
Or even, oh yes, him too. I'm thinking of Pez.
Oh yeah. Oh, Faz, yeah.
Fez. Oh my god. Like, I live for him. Like, him and yeah, and Algie's character. I forget his name. But yeah, like they can stay. The rest we can just have all the girls. Like, I love all of them. They're all queens. Like, more of all of them.
Yeah. I'm gonna spill some tea right now about Euphoria.
Oh, please.
I read the screenplay recently, and they had a massive spoiler in that was not revealed in the first season. Would you like to hear?
Yes. Oh my god.
In like the first couple like moments of like that screenplay, you know how they have like at the end of the first season like those imagination scenes of like Rue and Jules like tying up Nate and like setting him on fire and stuff like that. They literally said they killed him in the first couple things of like the first season that wasn't edited, like the pilot script. I was like, you guys didn't remove this? Because what's happening right now? Because I want to see this man dead. I want to see.
We're all in line for this. Like, we got tickets.
Like, honestly, the actor who plays Nate, I appreciate the fact that he is just like the definition of toxic masculinity and disgustingness, and how many actual people are like that. But it's just like, I would like to see him die.
And I love that like none of them, at least none of the teenagers, are just so like like it's the amount of like off the wallness is just so complex. Like, we need to really get into like his family history and talk about like how that's just really made him into who he is. Like, it's not just that like he decided to wake up one day and like act this way. No, like he's got some issues, and like I love that like they really get into all of their stories, and like you realize that these are all just complex people with really dark lives, and like you just kind of want to feel sorry for them even when they're like Nate, and just like you also just want to see them erased.
Oh yeah, it's just like the main thing about Nate is just like, I don't like the fact that it's kind of like that show You, where people are just like, oh, I love Penn Badgley's like character work. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just like, what? And I feel like if young viewers are seeing this, they're not getting the full picture.
Yeah.
That, like, disturbs me the most. But we'll we'll talk about that later. we should get going, because it's a little bit we've gone past the hour.
Oh.
One last thing I wanted to mention is what's some like good reads you read recently?
I recently finished Blaze Wrath Games by Amparo Ortiz, and that was super good. I am reading the sequel right now, and right before then I also read You Should See Me in a Crown, and like oh my God, how deserving it is of like all of the hype. Like, I'm so excited for Leah's next book. Like, she deserves everything. So yeah.
Oh my God, it's like a concert theme thing, and I know you love
It's,
that because I read.
yeah, like it's like a music festival. So it's gonna give me like all of the ACL vibes I have not gotten since this pandemic. Like, I'm so thrilled for this book.
That sounds amazing. Yeah. So, okay. So finally, I just wanted to say, everyone, please check out 1500 Miles from the Sun. I will have the links in the description. Pre-order, and once it's out, just order it because it's just great. So, Jonny, I just want to thank you again. This has been fantastic.
It's been so much fun.